Hey, everybody, and welcome back to All About Health and Wellness. We are sponsored by All American Wellness, and we are brought here to you by Podcast Junkies. That's Junkeez. If you want to get your message across to the public at large, you need to contact Ben Castro and Christian Perillo at podcastjunkies.com to get your message across to the masses. Thank you for joining me here today. I am here with my manager and administrator of All American Wellness, the fabulous Heather Klein. Say hi, Heather.
Hi, Heather. Happy to be here again. So let's get started. We've covered an array of topics, but we haven't covered what the first adjustment looked like. Our chiropractic office, what was the first adjustment? How did it come to play? What did it feel like? How was it, manipulated?
Okay.
Some history.
It's a good question. Little historical perspective. The first chiropractic adjustment to the public was performed in 1892. It was at the offices of D.D. Palmer. At the time, Dr. Palmer was the man who discovered chiropractic and was really applying the science and art of chiropractic to his family. And at one point in time, one of the men who worked at his building where he practices, a man named Harvey Lillard, who was the custodian for the building. Harvey Lillard had been suffering with what was considered deafness for years and years and years. And let's put that into perspective. Think about how many of you out there have possibly been on an airplane, and when you got off the airplane, you just couldn't hear correctly. You kept saying what to people, you kept trying to open up your eardrum, something felt stuck, and you just simply could not hear. Well, that type of deafness is what Harvey Lillard was experiencing from my understanding of the historical perspective. And Dr. Palmer utilized his skills as a chiropractor and adjusted the seventh bone in the neck and the first bone in the mid-back. And instantly, he cleared out the eustachian tube. For those of you who aren't anatomists, the eustachian tube is the tube in the middle portion of the ear that extends to the throat and regulates the pressure on your tympanic membrane or your eardrum. And if the pressure is too great or not enough, then your eardrum doesn't function normally and you can't hear. Dr. Palmer released this vertebral subluxation, and instantly Harvey Lillard was able to hear, and of course, news spread faster than wildfire in Davenport, Iowa, and Dr. Palmer became quite famous for the art and science of chiropractic. Eventually, his son, who he had mentored and taught, took over the education of chiropractic. And the first students in chiropractic were, believe it or not, medical doctors. And medical doctors really endorsed and enjoyed this education on spinal manipulation, or what was known as chiropractic. In those days, they were all excited to utilize their new skills. And you have to understand, this is the late 1890s, early 1900s. Medicine was very disorganized in those days. I mean, there was no standard of care. This aspect of learning spinal manipulation was very, very well taught. It was consistent. And this way, when doctors had graduated from chiropractic school, as they termed it in those days, there was consistency in their approach to treating the spine. Chiropractic ran into trouble with organized medicine when B.J. Palmer decided to start teaching the lay public how to do chiropractic. And this is where the stories and rumors of us being quacks and uneducated had gotten its roots and its start. And just like most areas of the world that deal with innuendo and rumor and basically prejudice. A lot of false statements and a lot of falsehoods were spread, and this is why the public to this day still has a hard time understanding what we do as chiropractors. So great question, Heather. Thank you very much.
So basically, what you're telling me is I can get off the airplane with clogged ears, go see a chiropractor, and essentially have this subluxation moved around to where I can hear again.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we still see people that come in to our offices who've, in fact, gotten off a plane and the eustachian tubes are clogged and they are not able to function normally. They can't hear. It's very frustrating and unnerving. And with an adjustment given specifically, that eustachian tube once again starts to function normally and the patients can hear. So we still do see miracles occur in our offices on a regular basis.
Well, that's great because that's the worst part about getting off a flight, that and having your bags lost.
Sure, absolutely.
So the adjustment. We did go over in our previous podcast what the adjustment activator or adjustment gun or the adjustment aid, if you will. You're going to go again into those types of areas of the neck. How do you release that?
Well, there are specific vertebrae or bones in the spine that you would adjust that have nerve innervation that are connected by nerves. And you have to have the specific vertebrae discovered or found or diagnosed to be able to provide a chiropractic adjustment to that area so that once again the brain and the body are connected to one another and normal function can return, in this case, to the eustachian tube.
Well, great. I think you definitely answered my question well. I'm sure people would be happy to hear that.
Well, we'll have to mark that as one question answered completely, and we'll see how the podcast proceeds.
All right. So let's change tactics, change subjects. We're looking at optimum health. When somebody comes in and you're saying, hey, I'd like to be at the tippy top of my health peak, what are we looking at in terms of services?
Okay, I think that's fair. You know, a lot of us in the world today deal with mental health issues, issues where our joints don't feel comfortable, our muscles don't feel comfortable. And what are some of the things that we could do so that we function well mentally and function well physically? So let's start with inflammation. Clearly, everybody on the earth today knows a little something about inflammation. Well, it's the start of all disease processes, and that would be a very true statement. Inflammation, left unaddressed, can progress to becoming a pathological or disease process that can affect people in a very detrimental way. So the first thing we look at to determine if a person is dealing with inflammation is fatty acid metabolism. Well, I already know what you're going to say, Heather. Yes, fatty acid metabolism has to do with how do we use fats in our body so that they perform functions to keep us well and functioning at what you said, the tippy top. How we use fats has a lot to do with inflammatory reactions in our body. Many people take in trans fats, French fries and margarine, and fats that really would qualify to be called toxins. And if you're eating trans fats right now, listen to me. Cut it out. You don't want to be taking trans fats into your body. They provide no nutritional benefit, and they are toxic at the very least. So let's get that under control. A lot of times we'll look at people and see how they're handling animal fat. Some people handle animal fat very well. Some people don't. For some people, animal fat affects the function of their small intestine. And a lot of people have heard that the small intestine is considered to be the second brain. And if you're affecting the second brain, you're going to affect how your gut functions and ultimately affect your mental health. So fatty acid metabolism is very important to figure out what is it that I'm taking in that I shouldn't be taking in? And what is it that I should be taking in? And that's where those omega-3 fatty acids, flaxseed, fish oil come into play. The omega-6 fatty acids like black currant seed oil, like evening primrose oil, and sesame seed oil, which fulfills a special function. Many of us out there are dealing with metabolic syndrome or pre-diabetes or areas in our metabolism where our insulin is just too high, and this comes from constantly eating high carbohydrate foods so that your cells start becoming insensitive to insulin, and you have a lot of insulin running around in your blood. Hyperinsulinemia is what people in the lay public know as hypoglycemia, where your blood sugar goes down very low. It does that because of insulin. And sesame seed oil, one of those fatty acids found in omega-6 fatty acids, suppresses insulin activity. And insulin is a hormone that is a pro-aging hormone. That and cortisol make you older way before your time. So, taking out the bad fats, which get in the way of you making neurotransmitters. For those of you who don't know what that means, it's a big word, neurotransmitter. These are the chemicals found in our brain that work on our, another big word, mesolimbic system. But why we act the way we do, why we have the particular quirks we do or personality quirks that we may have other people tell us about or that we experience either with anxiety or depression or both, have to do with our neurotransmitters. I'm going to mention a few words that you've probably heard: serotonin, norepinephrine, GABA, dopamine. All of these chemicals in our brain give us, at the very end of the day, what we really want: reward. And reward is that sense of well-being that your body enjoys. No matter what's going on externally, you have joy and a sense of well-being, and that's what we all want. And to a large degree, being able to make dopamine has a lot to do with having that reward. And when we deal with people who in our country have addictive issues, many of them are self-medicating because they have what's known as reward deficiency syndrome. They aren't making dopamine. They don't have that sense of well-being. They're not trying to get high. They're trying to get normal. They want to have that normal sense of well-being. And that comes from balancing your neurotransmitters. And if you're going to have that, you have to start with your fatty acid metabolism.
Okay. So once inflammation is,
Another complete answer?
All right, you could check off the box.
That's two. Okay.
I'll give that one to you.
All right.
Feel that dopamine, right?
Yep.
All
I
right.
feel that rush already.
So now that we've got inflammation under control or a good understanding, where would you move to next if we're going into tiers, if you will?
All right. After I would look at inflammation and your fatty acid metabolism, I would look for the big A.
A big A.
The big A stands for allergy. If you're having allergies, that creates brain fog. That creates the things that people typically think of, like watery eyes, runny nose, but many, many skin conditions, migraine syndromes, have their roots in allergy. Allergy to the foods we eat that for many of us, we think, oh, these are healthy foods. I'm not eating trans fats. I'm not having margarine or French fries or any of those things that contain trans fats. I'm having good, solid food. But for some people whose guts don't function completely normal, certain foods can create allergy syndromes. And allergy creates inflammation. It creates histamine within the small intestine that crosses the blood-brain barrier. Everybody out there, say it 3 times quickly. Blood-brain barrier. Once those chemicals pass through the blood-brain barrier, kind of think of it like the nightclub that those chemicals want to get in, and there's a big security guard that either lets them go through or doesn't. That's the blood-brain barrier. And when those chemicals go through there, histamine is a stimulatory chemical, and people get all sorts of hyperactivity. As a matter of fact, allergies affect children hugely with ADD or ADHD. A lot of those conditions find their roots in foods that children eat, and that's known as ADD or ADHD. So that's allergy. You don't want to have migraines. You don't want to have hyperactivity in your brain, such as anxiety. Then we need to find out where your allergies are coming from, eliminate your body's response to those allergies, and it's more than just taking an antihistamine, folks. Many skin issues that people deal with, and I see those commercials all the time that are hawking drugs to take for your eczema, for your psoriasis, for your dermatitis. All of these things, if you're paying attention, have huge side effects. Stop worrying about taking drugs to have clear skin. Clean up areas in your physiology that are not functioning normally. It's the canary in the cave, to use an old term. It's the way your body is telling you, hey, my gut isn't functioning normally. Hey, I've got allergies. The reason you're getting IBS syndromes and problems with your skin, a lot of it has to do with allergy responses of your body.
Okay.
Another complete answer?
Not yet, not yet.
Oh,
Don't get ahead of yourself here.
okay.
You're not 3 for 3. So when you're doing an allergy test, I think a lot of people say, okay, I've gone to my, my dermatologist, I've gone to my MD or my primary, and they've done the allergy test where they get, stuck with a few needles and they see the reaction. How do you go about testing for these allergies?
Well, we do testing through applied kinesiology, and we've explained that in the past. That's that advanced testing method that has us focus in on what foods could your body possibly be reacting to. Things you take in to your body every single day, multiple times a day. A lot of the skin scratch tests that are done are directed at fauna and flora, things that are on the exterior environment that could be affecting someone. However, it doesn't look into, well, how is your stomach functioning? How is your small intestine and large intestine functioning? These have intimate relations with your overall metabolism and physiology. Physiology is how your body functions and how your brain functions. These are all very, very important things to address if you really want to have optimal health and be at the, as Heather says, tip top of the health index. You want to function at a 10 on a 1 to 10 scale, then you definitely need to look at inflammation, allergy, and your diet and how your gut functions. Now, let's move on. How about we talk about protein metabolism for people in my age category? I'm in the 60s club, everybody. And the 60s club for a lot of people are about what you can't do anymore. And it's what we call growing old gracefully. You're gracefully giving up certain things. And if you don't want to do that, then you have to be aware of the scary word, sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is the destruction of your muscles because your body is no longer utilizing protein efficiently. For those of you who don't know it, when you want to have muscles and you want to have strength, you have to get a certain amount of protein in your body. Here's a little tip. You need 1 gram of protein for every pound of body weight. So there you go. If you want to have muscles, you're going to have to start working on figuring out how to get protein into your body. Now, that's just the start. You have to be able to utilize the protein that you're taking into your body. And there is a vitamin out there that's very important for you to utilize protein and make muscles.
Are you going to tell us what it is?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Okay, vitamin B2, riboflavin is extremely important for utilizing protein that you take in every day. And if I could make it a little more complicated, just because you take in a gram of protein doesn't mean you're absorbing a gram of protein. They have a term that's called bioavailability. Well, I just ate a gram of protein. Yeah, don't get so full of yourself. You're only absorbing and utilizing 50% of that. So that's when you rely on certain expertise to tell you how much protein you need to take in for your metabolism and your weight. And that will help you utilize your protein efficiently, provided you're taking enough riboflavin, B2, so that you can make muscle. Now, what's the other part of protein metabolism that's important? I wonder what it could be.
When to take the protein?
If those of you who watch Frasier let me use that, let's put on our thinking caps. And putting on our thinking cap, we need to get rid of that protein once we've utilized it, because the garbage, if you will, that you don't utilize, the ammonia and the nitrogen, you've got to get it out of your system. If you don't have enough of a certain vitamin in your system, you tend to collect that protein metabolic garbage, if you will, that you don't need any longer. And ammonia attracts water. So what happens is people start to notice, hey, I notice I'm carrying extra water. When I take my socks off, there's always a ring around my calf. I take my underwear off, there's always a ring around my waist. My ring doesn't fit normally anymore. I can't get it off because it's just too tight. This is water retention that has to do with too much ammonia being stored in the body and improper elimination. And when you store ammonia, it gets into your bloodstream. And where does it go? Through the blood-brain barrier. And it stops your body from making one of those really important neurotransmitters called GABA. GABA, you say? Absolutely. GABA is the most prevalent neurotransmitter in our brain. It is what enables us to sleep. Whenever you're taking some kind of medication to help you sleep, it is a GABAergic medication. Means it acts like GABA to help you sleep. And GABA also is very important in keeping you calm and rhythmic in your thinking and your cognitive abilities. If you have too much ammonia in your system, you don't make GABA. So what do? You take B6, otherwise known as, AKA, paradoxine. Paradoxine is what helps us eliminate ammonia, and as the ammonia goes away, so does the water and so does the nitrogen. We eliminate it like we should. We get rid of that excess water weight. We get rid of that excess ammonia, and we lower our issues in dealing with anxiety and inability to sleep. Isn't that important? Of course it is.
I like sleep.
Me too. And I like a good night's sleep without interruption. Speaking of interruption, what can cause us to have interrupted sleep?
Are we circling?
A guess?
Sugar.
No.
Okay.
But close. The Krebs cycle. Such an important metabolic cycle. It has 3 names. The tricarboxylic cycle and the citric acid cycle and the Krebs cycle are all the same thing. This is the way our body takes in protein, fat, and carbohydrate, mixes it all around, and makes ATP. What is ATP, you say? Adenosine triphosphate. Well, if you were a car and you were being asked, what is it that you need the most so that you run? Gasoline, except if it's a Tesla. But if you are a standard vehicle, you need gasoline to get your engine to run. If you're a biological organism like a human, you need ATP to get you to run. If you don't have ATP, you don't have energy. You're always tired. You don't understand why you're so tired. You're not making ATP. Plus, Heather, you end up waking up regularly through the night when you should be sleeping. ATP and the ability to sleep have intimate relation with one another. Your Krebs cycle, in addition to producing ATP, produces carbon dioxide. Well, why is that so important? Well, it's your drive to breathe at night. When your carbon dioxide gets to a certain level, you inhale and exhale. Otherwise, you become hypoxic during sleep. And for a lot of people, that's known as sleep apnea. And for a lot of people, that's known as tossing and turning and waking up. The Krebs cycle, which is hugely nutrition dependent. And this is why you want your doctor evaluating you whenever you're tired, whenever you don't have energy, whenever you're waking up at night. Hey, doctor, evaluate my tricarboxylic metabolism. And if they go, what? You said, oh, you should have been paying attention to All About Health and Wellness with Dr. Usry. It's the Krebs cycle.
I like to sleep, and I like uninterrupted sleep while breathing.
And
so that makes
energy.
sense.
And energy. We all want it. We all need it. All right, let's move on. So we got past inflammation. We got past allergy. Well, let's look at the number one reason why we age prematurely. Let's look at the number one reason why cells in our body are being destroyed while we're speaking. What could that be? The ever dangerous hyper-oxidation. If we were metal, we would call that rust. Rust starts to destroy metal, right? Hyper-oxidation, or what's known as free radical production, or reactive oxygen species, all of these processes that go on in the body create damage to the cells. How many of us take antioxidants and we're really not sure why we're doing that? We're taking antioxidants because we don't want oxidation to destroy the function of our cells. Over-oxidation is the number one reason why we age prematurely.
Everybody wants to be younger, so how do we reverse this?
Or remain younger. Well, without having anyone evaluate you, I would tell you start taking antioxidants. Just like taking vitamin C, and you're not quite sure why you're taking, you know that it's healthy for you, so are antioxidants. They're one of the best ways to avoid the number one reason why we age prematurely. There's 2 and 3 reasons, but we'll go into that at another time. The next area that you might want to look at is if you have sensitivities to smoke or perfume, or someone's painted the house inside and you can't stand being there, or they've put in new carpet and you just can't stand it, you may have aldehyde sensitivity. And that means you need a certain very tiny mineral called molybdenum. Molybdenum is very small but extremely powerful. I named my dog after molybdenum. Molly is my dog because she's very small and very powerful, and so is the mineral molybdenum. Molly is known for other things, but we're going to stick with what keeps us healthy. Molybdenum helps us with aldehydes, and it's a very important mineral for optimal health and function.
Well, that's great to hear. We definitely have to make a nice podcast about aldehydes because I want to tap into this a little bit further.
Well, we are in fact getting to the end of our show, so thank you very much for joining us this week. I will talk about in future shows the dreaded condition of homocystinemia. For those who haven't heard of it, it puts you at risk for cancer, heart disease, and Alzheimer's. It's an easy issue to address, costs pennies a day, yet many people that come into my office, I would say the majority of them, have this silent killer that they're dealing with and don't even know it and have never heard it. Stay tuned next week and we'll talk about homocystinemia.
That
In
sounds
the
scary.
meantime, it was wonderful to express some of the things that we do at All American Wellness to make sure people enjoy optimal wellness. As Heather says, at the tippy top of your health function, join us at All American Wellness. Give us a call, 561-863-8779 or allamericanwellness.com. And don't forget to look for us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. All about health and wellness. And don't forget about Podcast Junkies. They're the ones who bring this to you so that we can share this message of health and wellness. Thank you, and I'll see you next week. Heather, say goodbye.
Goodbye.